The biggest mistake that I see is that founders and business owners are not staying in learning modus and are not looking for insights. They just look for information and data, usually information and data that confirms their bias and their original ideas. Those are signs of companies that didn't learn enough, didn't generate enough insights, and they scaled too fast.
This is Desiree Echeverria with Close, and I'm joined again today by Steli Efti, co-founder and CEO of Close. And Steli, today we're talking about customer acquisition, acquiring your very first customers. And so just let's get started. Let's get right into it. How does the customer acquisition strategy evolve? I'm a B2B SaaS founder. I have 0 customers. I need my first 10 customers. How do I get them?
Well, the first 10 customers, by any means necessary, right? Really, you should probably assume that you're going to have to do a bunch of manual work, things that don't scale. Of course, it'd be nice if you just set up a few ad campaigns and boom, you start acquiring customers at a perfect sort of customer acquisition cost, and it immediately automates and scales beautifully. But that's not possible or feasible. Most people painfully realize that after banging their head against the wall for many, many months, sometimes heartbreakingly. But you should take a very pragmatic approach. All right, I've built something for a specific customer. Hopefully I know and have a clear idea who that customer is and how I'm solving a very specific pain point for them. Well, if I have such level of clarity, who do I know? Who is that customer? Can I call them? Can I visit them? Can I go somewhere they hang out? Can I talk to them personally? Can I convince them? If I don't know these customers personally, who do I know who might know some? Maybe I know somebody, if I sell something, a sales tool, and I don't know sales managers, maybe I know, engineering managers. Maybe I reach out to some friends of mine that are engineering managers and ask them, hey, do you have a sales manager at your company? Here's the cool thing I've built. Could you make an intro? So I talk, I learn, and I see if what I've built is actually valuable. But you should try anything and everything, and you should keep it as intimate as possible. It's totally fine if this is not scalable at the first 10 customer mark. And it's totally fine, if you are very and heavily involved. You want to be contextually sort of knee deep in the customer acquisition arena, and not sort of high up in some tower, just formulating a perfect acquisition strategy that you then hand down to the peasants of your kingdom and they go and acquire all your customers. It's not about just getting somebody to say, yes, I wanted your solution and I'm ready to pay for it. Anything and everything they say around it that happens before and after and in between is gold, inside gold. And for the first 10 customers, the main goal is not the revenue. The main goal, especially in SaaS, but in any industry, is insights. You really want to understand how they speak about their problems, how they respond to how you speak about your solution, their facial expressions, their like and dislikes, what their sensitivity is towards price, what other companies and competitors come up organically for them. You really want to ask lots of questions and learn, really being learn modus in the first 10 customers. So yes, you want their money as a strong signal that what you're building is good and valuable, and there might be a specific customer that you could build a business around. So money is important, but it's not just money. It's about insights. It's about learning. And so you want to get as close to the lowest hanging fruit around you, around your network. You want to get as intimate in the customer acquisition process. You don't want to worry about scalability. You just want to talk to these people, ideally in person, if not then virtually, but you really want to interact with the potential customers and not just, pay somebody else to deliver you the customers and the revenue. Really, at the early days, you want to interact as much as possible, be involved as much as possible, and learn as much as possible.
So let me ask you this. What kind of customer, like what kind of business is going to be enthusiastic or willing to work with a brand new start, to know that they're one of the first 10 customers, almost like beta testing a little bit? What level of comfortability, what kind of customer are you seeking in those first 10, and are people responsive to it?
It really depends. Of course, people are responsive to it. So just let's kill the idea that, oh, people don't want to buy if nobody else has bought before. If that was true, no new business would have ever existed after we've established some companies in certain industries, right? Every day, somebody buys a product that has never been sold or bought before. So you can do it too. Um, Now, what kind of buyers will buy something that, is not already, something that comes from an established brand with a lot of social proof and a long-standing history in the market? Well, there's a variety of potential buyers. Some buyers, the best buyers for you early on, are the ones that have the strongest pain and are the most ignored by the marketplace, right? A buyer that is, and a potential customer that is so frustrated and in such pain about this problem they have and nobody is solving it right, they will be interested in anyone that really cares and that really delivers the right solution to them. And it won't matter as much to them if they're your first customer or your 10th. If they can just be convinced that this will solve their problem, right? They'll be ecstatic. So sometimes it has to do with the level of pain a customer has and slash or the level of, how undervalued or ignored they are by other companies in the space. That is your best buyer, probably. There are other buyers that will buy because they're excited. Some people just love to be early adopters. They love to buy the new product. They love to buy the cool, shiny new thing. They want to be the first. They want to feel at the cutting edge of the newest tool and the newest innovation. So they'll just be enthusiastic about talking to you, giving you feedback, and playing around with your product, maybe because they are product enthusiasts in general or tech enthusiasts in general. These people are good, but they also pose a danger. So you want to be careful because, they might just be more enthusiastic about giving you feedback and about playing with a new thing than they are truly somebody that has the pain of that is solved by the solution that you developed, and that can scale in terms of the way that they want to buy and use your product will translate to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of other people. But early adopters, right? People that are just interested in new solutions are going to be out there as well. And then thirdly, people that, ideally in the early days that know you and trust you from your prior career, right? People that are your friends, people that were your coworkers, people that have, maybe used other things that you've developed in the past might be a really good group of people. They might know that what you're doing is new, but they might know you, I have trust in you, or if it's not a direct relationship, it could be an indirect relationship. As I mentioned earlier, let's say that I have, a really good friend that is the head of engineering at a software business, and I've built something for the marketing department. Maybe the person in the marketing department will listen to me because my friend is really well respected, and has high authority. And the person says, hey, if John or Phil says I should listen to Steli about his new solution, it's probably going to be a smart person, and maybe the solution is interesting, so I'll take a look at it. So getting some sort of a credibility either through your past experience or direct relationship with people, or indirectly. Sometimes it's affiliation, right? Like I might say, hey, I also worked at, big tech company at Google, and I know that you've worked at Google in the past. Can we talk, and can I show you my solution? And some people do that through school association, right? Hey, we went to the same college, and I'm building a solution for sales managers. You're a successful sales manager. Can you give me a couple of minutes of time to give me feedback and see if what I've built could be something interesting to you? So those are sort of on top of my head, people that might want to buy from you, although you're really early on, and they might be the first 10 customers to purchase your solution.
Yeah, that's a great insight. It's like the ultimate referral is I worked with this person. They are invested in my success too. They want to see me succeed with this cool thing. Okay, so that's your first 10 customers. You can't do that forever. How do I go
Nope.
from 10 to 100?
Yeah. So things change, right? Once you get your first 10 customers, probably you're going to have a little bit of variety in there. It's not going to be all exactly the same type of person, position, company size, industry, uh, and so on and so forth. There's going to be some variety in there. And with the first 10 customers, you just want to sort of learn, understand how to speak about your solution, who has your problem and has it the most. And so start gaining insights and experiences and seeing that there's something here enough that you get some very early people excited enough to give you money. Now that I have 10 customers, I want to go, can I go from 10 to 100? And the journey from 10 to 100, changes then. Obviously, I can't keep doing this where every single customer is acquired by me as a founder or business owner myself. So now I'm going to do a number of things. Number one is I'm going to try to see, can I teach what I've learned to at least one other person? And could someone else as well acquire customers, either by doing what I do or doing a flavor of it, right? So we're trying to see if the way that I've acquired customers, if that could be replicated, even if it's not exactly the same in terms of conversion rates, even if it's not as successful as if I do it, but can somebody else, can someone that is not me also acquire a customer for this solution, right? That alone is a crucial insight, a crucial milestone that indicates that there could be big success or a real viable business in the future here. So what you'll do typically between 10 and 100 is that you'll bring in someone else to help with selling. You'll teach that person what you have done in the past to sell, and you'll tell them to, probably follow along the path that seems most repeatable to you, most promising, the type of customer that seems most exciting. And then you'll work still alongside with that person to sort of see, can somebody else sell as well? And then as we start selling a little bit more, because we're now two people, and as we're starting to try to figure out repeatable ways to sell, right? So I can't just sell, like maybe the first two customers are my mom and my dad, but we can't just be selling to my mom and dad forever. So then after my mom and dad, we have to sell to somebody that my mom and dad knows, maybe then to somebody they know. Maybe as we talk to these people, we'll ask them, hopefully, how do you buy other products? How do you buy products when they don't come through referrals? What blogs do you visit? What YouTube channels do you read? Do you ever click on ads? Trying to learn, like, what other ways would there be available to me if I wanted to reach people like you and show them that my solution exists? Because you're telling me my solution is great. So how can I succeed in finding other people that need to know that this exists? So you start trying to find other ways that are a little bit more repeatable, that are a little bit more scalable, and that go beyond sort of just your immediate network and the people you personally know. And you're at the same time trying to see if you can teach somebody else to do some similar activity and generate some similar results. Then you doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be going, right? And then the third thing that you do, hopefully, that as you start doing a little bit more marketing, a little bit more, whatever it is, maybe it's events, maybe it's cold outreach, there's going to be a few activities out of all the ones that you're doing that will generate more promising results, and you're going to lean into these activities, right? So maybe you've tried a couple of things, but cold outreach on LinkedIn is really the one channel that starts generating better results than all other channels. Well, then you're going to start doubling down on that, improving on that, iterating on that, growing that sort of channel, that acquisition model for you. And it might be something totally different in your industry, but you'll try to find some winners of activities and like double down on them, as well as you're going to start still focused on generating insights. Even 10 to 100, you're not yet at a point usually where you can say, well, we've learned everything there is to know. We know exactly who our customer is. We have perfect customer product fit. And now it's just about feeding the machine and scaling our customer empire. It's very unlikely that that's the case. You're still very early days, and learning should still be a crucial part of everything you do. So as you acquire 10 to 100 customers, most businesses, what they experience is, again, like a broadening of variety of type of customer, a broadening of feedback of what sort of type of customers, what kind of feedback they give you. And there's going to be conflicting. Some say they really like A and others hate a part of your product, and vice versa. So you'll start learning more and more, this size of customer versus that size of customer, this type of customer versus that type of customer. Here are their preferences. Here's how they pay. Here's what their budgets look like. Here's how quickly they churn or cancel. Here's how heavy the support needs are that we have to offer them. And as you learn more, again, that will hopefully inform your customer acquisition strategy. So hopefully by the time you have 100 customers, you've now learned and identified your ideal customer, right? There's a bunch of people that will be buying from you, but some will see more success. Some you'll see more success with, and they'll see more success with you than others. And amongst those that see the most success with you, and you have the easiest time convincing, you'll also have to look at not just the product market fit, sort of like how great is our solution for this kind of customer? Maybe it's good for these three types of customers, but it's truly great for this, particular kind of customer. But then the flip side of that is also an acquisition model customer fit. So which of these customers is it the easiest, the fastest for you to acquire, the cheapest? Which type of customer scales the most, right? Maybe you have some customers that are great customers, but they're just not that many of them that exist in the world. That will inform probably who you should be paying attention to more or less, and how you should be thinking about the future of your business. So during the 10 to 100 customers, you try to find repeatable activities. You try to sort of merge yourself into a second person, at least some other person that also helps with customer acquisition. And you'll start to try to learn and develop an ideal customer profile and a real idea of who the types of industries and customers are and what the types of acquisition channels there are that you're going to want to use to really scale the business.
Yeah, that sounds like incredibly important to always be learning. But in particular, in that, like, I can imagine it's so tempting as a founder to want to say, "All right, that's it. We figured it out. We got it. We got 70 customers this way. Certainly, we can rest on our laurels and just keep doing that, copy paste that process over and over." But to like constantly be open to like, okay, we haven't learned it all. Always be open to learning. So now, how do you go from 100 to 1,000? Big leap, but another milestone. How are you scaling 100 to 1,000 customers?
Yeah, that's usually the next natural progression. Now, sort of, you go from hopefully having identified a certain customer that sees a lot of value from your solution, and a way to market to them and sell to them that sees good, solid success. And hopefully you can see into the future and recognize that there are a lot of them out there, right? So we have a lot of work in front of us to sort of market ourselves and acquire these customers and grow the solution, the product, and the business with them. So on the 100 to 1,000 step, what you're doing is you basically now have to step up your game and get a little bit more professional. Usually, maybe the first 100 customers, you can be a very tiny team, and, it can all be duct taped together in terms of process, in terms of how you do things, or how you approach things. But once you're at the 100 to 1,000, that won't work anymore. Now problems will arise. And so what you need to do, and what you're probably going to start doing, is now you're building a team on the not, on the marketing, acquisition, and sales side of things. You build a real team. You start building out process, right? Like, what is our process? How much does it cost to acquire a customer? How do we start optimizing? And you're going to try to see, can we accelerate and can we scale? Can we really sort of double down on what we've learned is working, and see now how many of those customers can we acquire? And then usually in the first 10 customers, retention usually doesn't play that big of a role, right? You just try to find somebody that will pay you money because they have a big enough pain to purchase your product. That's already a great accomplishment. 10 to 100, you will start seeing a little bit of churn, some customers canceling, but you're still so early, hopefully, and you're still learning so much about what it takes to convince somebody to become a customer. And you're just starting to get a taste for what does it take to keep a customer, right? But on the 100 to 1,000, what's going to start happening is that customer acquisition will become equally weight and importance to customer retention. Right now, you already know a customer that gets a lot of value, your ideal customer. You do targeted marketing, you do targeted sales, you have a process, but you also are around for a longer period of time. So now you're going to see, what does it take to keep a customer? What does it take to expand and grow with a customer? And usually these will become big challenges, because what excited them to buy your solution was great, but after a while, there's going to be things that you don't address well or well enough, and so they're leaving. So you're going to have to start building things and figure out ways to be keeping customers, not just to acquire them. And then maybe you start learning that, okay, there's a certain type of customer that we have an easier time convincing, but they also leave very quickly. And then there's another type of customer, it takes a little bit more work to convince them, but they stay for very long periods of time. And maybe that will inform your future. Maybe that will change your strategy in terms of who to prioritize and who to focus on, in terms of the solutions you're building, the way you market the business. So retention will start playing a big role, and you start going to try to learn What does it take to keep the customer? And what does it take to grow with a customer, right? If your customers that pay you the initial amount of money keep not just paying you that money and staying with you, but keep expanding. So they keep paying you more and more money for more services, for more features, for more users on your platform. Those three outcomes will make completely different destinies for your business and priorities, right? You acquire a customer, but they leave very quickly, versus you acquire a customer and they stay very long. Day and night differences in terms of what kind of a business you have. You go from a business that may or may not survive to a business that will maybe survive and thrive forever, right? If you can acquire customers and keep them for really long periods of time. And now you go from acquiring customers and keeping them to being able to expand with them. And now we're talking. Now you're not just surviving and thriving. Now you're exploding. Maybe you have a unicorn. Maybe this is going to be a $1 billion business, because that's sort of the kind of dynamic that you need to really scale, right? You acquire customers and then they magically and beautifully keep growing with you. So you're going to start learning how to build a team, build process, and scale your customer acquisition machine. And at the same time, you're going to start learning more and more about customer retention, customer expansion, and that these learnings will start to sort of fuse together in making decisions on how to market, how to sell, how to close, and how to keep evolving or innovating around your solution, product, or service as you sort of go from 100 to 1,000. That's also a period typically that takes longer, right? That's a longer period of time where the business starts scaling, you start hiring more people, building more process, and hopefully you keep learning as you scale.
What are some mistakes that you see founders making from the 0 to 1,000 customer journey?
I mean, the mistakes are endless, but if I can boil it down to one thing, it's not being in learning modus long enough, or sometimes not at all. Some customers think, I sat in a room, I brainstormed, I know who my ideal customer is. All I have to do now is raise 100 million to acquire all the customers that I've dreamed about, right? And they sort of have this mindset that they already know. Now it's only about spending the money to acquire the customers, versus really staying in learning mode and in insight mode, right? Not just looking for what are people telling me and what is the data that we're collecting. Oh, we have a 5% click-through rate here and people say they like this. That's data and information that's useful, but what you're looking for is to see if there's patterns, real insights, aha moments. Wow, this is a problem, but this is a much bigger problem and nobody's paying attention to that. There's a hidden gem somewhere, or there's a big pattern that you see in the way your customers talk about things or the way your customers buy things. So the biggest mistake that I see is that founders and business owners are not staying in learning modus and are not looking for insights. They just look for information and data, usually information and data that confirms their bias and their original ideas. And if you go into the market that way, you're not going to be learning. And if you're not going to be learning, you're going to fail. Sooner or later, maybe on day one, maybe it's going to take 100 days, but you're going to fail. So that is one of the biggest problems. The other problem is, that coincides with that one, is that people pretend or try their best, founders, business owners, try their best early on to be in this learning mode, to say, I'm going to go and interview prospects. I'm going to be in customer development mode. I'm going to look for product market fit. But they're so eager to get to a stage where they can now, quote unquote, scale, that they too early pull the trigger on deciding we have learned what was needed, and we're ready for the big next step. So they move too quickly in terms of trying to scale things when they don't yet know enough. And what ends up happening is that they just waste a tremendous amount of money and time, and they're creating all these holes, in their sailboat, as they're sailing into a destined future storm, right? So that it's like your business isn't failing right now because technically your customer number is going up, but it's going up in a way where you're buying customers at hugely expensive customer acquisition costs, customers that can't see long-term success with your product, customers that will churn very quickly. And so by the time you have to accept that reality, you already spent a tremendous amount of money. You build all these features for customers that can't see success with you long term. And you'll have to do then what companies end up having to do then is this, although they already have 5 million in revenue, 10 million in revenue, although they already have 50 employees, they've already raised 12 million in venture capital. All these things seem like great successes. And then you hear about their big pivot. That they're completely changing what they're doing, that they're completely rebranding or completely, innovating into a totally different market. Those are signs of companies that didn't learn enough, didn't generate enough insights, and they scaled too fast. They weren't ready to go from 100 to 1,000 as quickly as they went, but they didn't care. They just wanted to get the revenue milestones. And so they start acquiring customers, or a type of customer, in a type of way, before they're really sure and it's certain and proven that this way and this type of customer should be acquired with this sort of cost, right? And scaled up. So those are the things that are, the most common mistakes that almost every business makes this in one way or another. And especially all of them that fail make this mistake for sure.
Yeah, I've worked at two startups before close, one of which was like sort of early VC funded, where it was very clear now in retrospect that they were trying to implement a customer acquisition strategy that was outsized for them. Like it was two sizes too big, like getting close you'll grow into, when they were still so small and you could tell. And the second place that I had worked, it was the opposite problem, where they'd scaled a good amount but plateaued because they didn't want to shift their customer acquisition strategy from something that was a high touch sales motion into something that really should have been more marketing focused, or whatever. And they plateaued. So I think there's probably, it's so hard to let go of the idea that you go into it with, is like, this is how I'm going to acquire customers, and if I deviate from that, it's a distraction. But there's a lot to be said for like doing the right thing at the wrong time. I know I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, and we're not exempt from that mistake. We saw tremendous success in acquiring customers purely with content, purely with word of mouth, and those two things are still massive channels for us. 10 years later, but every success has in and of itself a trapping of a future failure, right? Like you're so in love with this thing that's working, or you're holding on to it so tightly because you want it to keep working, that you're not flexible enough, open enough to reach out for new things that could work equally, or that could work sort of and help you evolve into your next phase as a company. And for us, for instance, our inbound funnel, our word of mouth funnel worked so well that for a long time we were just focused on that. And we kind of knew we should build other channels as well. We should expand how we acquire customers and how people know about us. But it took us too long because it was just too comfortable to hold on to these things. Any new channel that you build is going to be difficult. It's going to take time. It's going to have failure
Risk.
involved with it, risk involved with it. So what do you do? What did we do is you do these half-hearted attempts. Oh, let's run a little experiment. Let's try this out. Oh, it didn't work. Let's stop immediately, right? And you don't have the conviction to really invest in something long-term, as well as holding on to things sometimes that stopped working as well as they did in the early days, right? But you're like, but we used to see so much success. But maybe if we just do it a little bit better, but maybe if we wait till the market trends change, and you're sort of on the sinking ship, on this thing that's
Mm-hmm.
working, but it works less and less well, but you're not willing to take the risk to evolve and change, which in general, in a world that constantly changes, you as a business will have to stay open-minded. You will have to stay in a mindset that says, I'm willing to take risk and I'm willing to change. And most never even get there, but the ones that do see some success early on, if they see failure, if they plateau, which is another very common pattern and challenge that businesses have, most of the time it's because what brought them to that point is something now that is limiting them, and that they're not willing to let go. They're too afraid to let go of that.
Yeah, great insights. Once again, those are all the questions I have. I think that's enough for people to get started. If they have zero customers, at least to collect a few. I remember I heard a story about you in the early days of Close, where you guys are trying to get customers, and you just went to like the Crunchbase website and just started looking at who had just gotten funding or whatever, and you just started like calling them and pitching to them. And I always love that story.
And we actually, I will add something to that story just to round it up. Because we were already a little bit known in the startup scene at the time, and I was a little bit known as sort of a sales expert, and we didn't want that to taint the results. We were calling them with like a fake company name and a fake that was Steve Eli or something, just to see if people would be like F off or if they wouldn't want to buy without that trust factor. And when we saw that within 2 weeks, we had 7 companies that were like, all right, here's our money. Please give us the service. We thought, all right, maybe there's something to this idea. And that's how we sort of committed to start building something that now, 11, 12 years later, we're still scaling and running.
That's awesome. I bet we could talk to you for an entire day about your customer acquisition hacks, but I don't think anyone has the time in the day to listen to it, unfortunately. This is, by the way, this is the last episode of season 1 of the $0 to $30 million blueprint. So this is the last episode of what we're calling the early stage season. The next episode will kick off season 2, and that's going to be sort of the growth stage, the messy middle. Let's say you've got your first 1,000 customers. What's next? What breaks along the way to scaling your company up? So stay tuned for season 2 of the $0 to $30 million blueprint. Bye, everybody.